Welcome to The Explainer. We're about to do a rapid-fire run-through of the key events shaping our world, all happening today. Let's jump right in.
Okay, so the date is Monday, October 13th, 2025. And what a day it is. We're seeing some really intense contrasts. Fragile peace deals taking hold, while new border skirmishes explode. Let's get into it.
So we're going to start with two major geopolitical hotspots. And what's wild is that the stories are heading in completely opposite directions. One is moving, carefully, toward peace, and the other is tipping into a sudden, pretty deadly conflict.
The biggest story today, without a doubt, is a massive development in the Middle East. A ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, brokered by the U.S., is actually in effect. I mean, for the first time in what feels like forever, aid trucks are rolling into Gaza. A very, very delicate diplomatic process is now officially underway.
This number, 7. It's so much more than a statistic. This represents 7 Israeli hostages, the very first group to be released by Hamas. Today, right now, they're back home, reuniting with their families after being held captive for over 2 years. Just an unbelievable moment.
Let's just put this into perspective for a second. This whole crisis kicked off way back on October 7th, 2023. Now you fast forward through 2 years of conflict, of intense negotiations, and you land on yesterday, when the ceasefire finally started. All of that leads to today, a day of these incredibly emotional reunions.
And right in the middle of it all, U.S. President Donald Trump touched down in Tel Aviv just a few hours ago. He is not holding back, calling the deal a historic breakthrough. His presence there really tells you how high the stakes are for this whole diplomatic push.
You can see the diplomatic machine is in overdrive just by looking at Trump's schedule. He's already met with Israeli leaders, he's planning to address their parliament, the Knesset, and then he's off to Egypt to co-chair a peace summit. Seriously, all eyes are on this region. The next 48 hours are going to be absolutely critical.
But here's the contrast we were talking about. Just as one conflict hits the pause button, another one is igniting. Over in Central Asia, a really dangerous situation is developing on the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. It's a total flip side to the news coming out of Gaza.
58, that is a heavy number. It's the number of Pakistani soldiers that Afghanistan's government is claiming to have killed in a cross-border clash literally overnight. Afghanistan is talking about airspace violations, a major border crossing is now shut down, and tensions are just skyrocketing.
Okay, let's bring our focus back to the United States now, because there are two very different kinds of domestic crises that are making headlines today.
16. That's the number of workers who were killed yesterday in just a horrific explosion at an explosives factory in rural Tennessee. The blast was felt for miles around, and authorities have now tragically confirmed there were no survivors.
And over in Washington, the political crisis just keeps grinding on. The U.S. federal government shutdown is now rolling into its second week. And the impacts, they're starting to get a lot more visible for everyone.
So what does this actually mean for you? Well, as of yesterday, the Smithsonian Museums, the National Zoo, they're all closed. But more critically, air traffic controllers are calling in sick at higher rates, and yep, that's leading to flight delays. It's gotten serious enough that the president has had to issue emergency pay for active duty military members. All right, from those domestic issues, let's zoom back out to the global stage. We're going to look at a major economic standoff and then a really high-stakes election happening on the African continent.
So the U.S.-China trade war, it's heating up again. On one side, you've got President Trump threatening these massive 100% tariffs. And on the other side, you've got Beijing basically shrugging it off, pointing to their export numbers, which, by the way, just beat all the forecasts. It's a classic standoff, with neither of these economic giants willing to blink first.
Now let's shift over to Africa. In Cameroon, voters are going to the polls today for a presidential election, and believe me, it is fraught with tension. The person at the center of it all is the incumbent, Paul Biya, who is, get this, 92 years old.
The whole situation is just incredibly challenging. You have President Biya trying to get an 8th term in office, but separatist groups have called for a total boycott of the election. And that's led to really low voter turnout in some areas, and there are widespread fears of violence, especially after some recent crackdowns on the opposition.
Our next section is another one of those stark contrasts. We have a violent attack on one side of the world, and on the other, a celebration of some of humanity's absolute greatest achievements.
13. That's the total number of people killed in an assault on a police training facility in Pakistan. Reports say 7 officers and 6 militants died in the attack. It's just a grim reminder of the security challenges that are still so persistent in that region.
But even with all the conflict, the world did pause to recognize some pretty remarkable work. The Nobel committees made their big announcements. The Peace Prize is going to Venezuelan activist Maria Coroneta Machado for her incredible fight for democracy. The Literature Prize goes to Laszlo Krasnohorkai, and the Medicine Prize to 3 researchers for their truly groundbreaking work on the immune system.
So, to wrap up our snapshot of October 13th, let's look at a moment of global exchange and a little peek into the future. Today marks the end of the Osaka Kansai World Expo in Japan. It just closed with a ceremony where they passed the official flag to Saudi Arabia, which will be the host of the next expo in 2030. It's one of those moments that kind of symbolizes global dialogue and continuity, even when times are turbulent.
And that brings us to the end of our snapshot of this one single day. We've seen moments of fragile peace and sudden violence, political gridlock, and incredible human achievement. It all kind of leaves us with one big question, right? In a world that is this interconnected, which of today's headlines, which of these stories will be the ones that truly define our future?